So, kicking things off, man, let me just talk about Terminator 2 Judgment Day. Now, well, basically, Ricardo, Summer, who isn't here, and we talked about the first Terminator movie, and we shared our thoughts on the series up to Dark Fate, because Dark Fate didn't come out at the time, right? And, we did a review of Dark Fate. We had issues with it. I'll bring it up in my little recap, basically, right? So, I don't want to repeat everything that I said in that intro to the Terminator review that we did 2 years ago or whatever, right? But I'll just kind of just run through my history with the franchise for me. I never forgot back in '91 when I was like in primary school, when the trailers for Terminator 2 Judgment Day, the TV spots dropped on TV, and how excited I was. I mean, just the poster alone, me with Arnold and the bike with the shotgun. It's just so goddamn iconic, right? Just everything about it just always stood out to me. And I was too young actually to see the movie because I was like, what, 6 or 7, whatever. But I specifically remember that movie being all ages, rated all ages. Even though when you watch a movie now, it's like, oh, you could show kids that. Like, it's just so violent. Do you mean? Not overly graphic, but compared to the first movie, it's yeah, it's pretty graphic, right? But it took me a long while actually to see Terminator 2. I actually saw it at a friend's house. He had it on VHS. And if I'm not mistaken, I believe I saw that before the first Terminator movie, which I actually saw on a little station called AVM Channel 416. Yeah, I remember they had it, I believe it was a Sunday night at 11 o'clock. And I went to my bed early, got up late, and, watched that movie. And I was completely blown away. And I learned what a mosaic filter it was, because for all the nude scenes, yeah, you just saw that it's blocking all the naughty bits, right? But yeah, I enjoyed that movie though. But Terminator 2 blew me away the first time I saw it. Just everything about it worked for me. Arnold being just this badass hero, Linda Hamilton just being this kick-ass hero. Robert Patrick just being one of the greatest villains I've ever seen on screen. And I mean, just amazing, right? And over the years, I have just grown to love that film even more. And I would just say this right off the bat, guys. This is my pick for favorite action movie of all time. It's actually like in my top 10 favorite movies of all time. That's how much I love Terminator 2, right? So
Yeah.
quickly, just running through the franchise. Terminator 3 happened. That was the first film that I saw at Caribbean Cinemas 8. And even though,
Yes, that happened.
yeah, and even though the fans, pretty much kind of, throw it on the, on the bus basically. Um, I didn't hate it, right? It did feel like they were trying desperately to update basically the same premise for the first two movies, and most times it just didn't work at all. The TX character, they could have done so much with her just being a female Terminator. Didn't really care that much for John Connor, but but what I really love about the show though is how they basically kind of let people know, hey, Judgment Day had to happen. It have to happen at some point in time, right? So we just delay the inevitable. And I was just blown away by the end, and I actually love the ending for this, where yeah, Judgment Day happened, and the world, quote unquote, came to an end, and I love that. And where it left off, I was like, all right, well, we had to see what happens next, right? And Terminator Salvation happened, and that was a
That
huge
happened.
disappointment for me. Yeah, it because it was just about the resistance, and we're gonna see young John Connor and young Kyle Reese, and it's like, sorry, we don't care. I know Christian Bale was in it. I know he was big. He riding off the success of Batman Begins and Dark Knight, but still, it was like we don't care. We just don't care. McGee was a horrible choice to direct this thing. And yes, you could throw in, oh, we're seeing Arnold from the first movie before he go into time displacement unit. Sorry, did not care at all. There was Genesis, which a funny thing is was the first show, one of the two first shows that Ricardo and I reviewed for formerly known as BS Beats and Bailey, right? We were nonplussed by it. We didn't really care for it that much, but I actually rewatched it in preparation for Dark Fate, and what I would say is that there are a lot of great ideas in this movie, like shockingly great, in terms of like just subverting what we would expect from a Terminator movie. Problem is, it was too much movie ideas that they tried to stuff in a 2 hour film, and it just did not work. It was just spilling out the bag basically. There was just too much ideas, and it shifted focus so quickly, and it just kind of ended up being underwhelming, right? And last but not least, now there was Terminator Dark Fate, right? Which I didn't hate, right? I didn't hate. But what I would say, what this one did well out of the sequels or prequels, not directed by James Cameron, is that it really did feel intense. Because one thing about the first two Terminator movies that were directed by James Cameron, you felt the intensity in each and every action sequence, right? I didn't really feel it with Tree. I didn't feel it with Salvation. Didn't feel it with Genesis. But with Dark Fate, I really felt that. And I think it's because they went back to the R rating. Because, yeah, Genesis was PG-13 for no reason. So was Salvation, right? But they just basically just try to update things. But it just kind of came off like, all right, really? What? Why? Like now you're telling me this random chick who just show up out of nowhere, she's the savior, she's the leader of the resistance, and you want us to buy it? No, come on, right? And then they just do this thing, right? Well, Ricardo, maybe you could fill in on what you thought about this, right? They killed John Connor. They kill him. They just like kneecap their own franchise by saying, yeah, John Connor died because after they waited out till August 29th, 1997, when the war was, when Skynet took over. Sorry, they waited it out. So okay, it didn't happen. All right, cool. So the Terminator was still sent out and still kill John. But the thing that this almost took me out of the movie, right, was why have the Terminator look like Arnold Schwarzenegger, right? Why does every Terminator that show up have to look like Arnold Schwarzenegger? I mean, come on, man. The infiltration units, like, give them another look. I mean, come on, right? But yeah, killing John Connor was a controversial move. It's one that I can't defend at all, but I guess that they were trying to do something a bit different, but it just undermined everything now. And the worst part about it now is that when you look at stuff like Terminator 2, where, John Connor was so important, it's like, but it don't even matter because he get killed in the next movie, right? Because, yeah, because this show disavows Tree and Salvation and Genesis. So this literally shows up, happens right after Terminator 2 ends. I tell me, well, John dies, so okay, whatever. I mean, action-wise, it was fine, but I just can't let go of that decision to kill John Dredd. I mean, it's no sense to me.
Well,
Anyway,
yeah,
well, Ricardo, take it away. Your history with Terminator 2 in particular. Just the cliff notes, and just the
yeah,
quick run through the franchise after.
yeah. Again, until the Matrix was showed up, then it was my favorite action movie, blockbuster film. Uh, it really is truly iconic, as they say it is. It is very repetitive of the first film, but because a lot of people didn't see the first film, that didn't matter. That was the idea. It was kind of a brilliant marketing scheme on the part of James Cameron to make it the way it did, right? Very reminiscent. It automated movies do this, which is selling out the plot, right? Because the big twist in this one is, oh, Arnold's the good guy this time, and because no one knew what to look for, how to think about it, it works, right? Even with the sequels, because it imprints in our brains, or at least my generation's brains. Selling out the plot line is kind of annoying. Every Terminator sells out the plot line in some way, shape, or form. Right, if you notice. Um, that's it in terms of the marketing. Yeah, the second film is great. T-1000s are badass. Still iconic special effects, great look. The sequels, well, I already kind of the position about them sequels. They're kind of bad, right? Almost all of them kind of bad. There's most of them is missed opportunities, wasted ideas, a bunch of ideas that could have worked as a TV series, if anything, but they decided to fit, the whole all of these ideas in a 2 hour movie, which already worked. And the last one I enjoyed a lot, as you say it, but the whole Data John thing doesn't work all that well. It's not that Data John is a bad idea, it's actually a good idea, but they need to do something with that. And they didn't do anything
Yeah.
with it. They just kill him and then move on, right? You could have done something with that. I had a couple ideas of what they could have done with that. They kind of wasted. But yeah, that's how I feel about the film, just off the top of your head. But, in terms of the history of it, it's one of these films that really iconic in terms of what you do, especially effects. There are a lot of great behind the scenes about what it's or how they do certain things. They get Linda Hamilton's twin to do a shot. They do this, they do that, they do a bunch of other stuff. All kind of really cool ideas, like a lot of clever like engineering solutions that James Cameron came up with. And yeah, it kind of was one of the first big blockbusters that did what we call the theme park ride movie. It kind of started that, if you think about it. Probably one of the first, if they did that. Yeah, there's a good reason. There's a reason why James Cameron is the champ of the box office. Man's a really smart and ingenious filmmaker. Yeah, so
Yeah.
that's how I feel about it.
I still waiting on Avatar 2. Huh? I
Yeah,
have
me too.
almost lost patience waiting on Avatar 2. Huh?
As
First
I,
one came
as
out
I
in
say, as I say,
2009. Huh?
yeah, as I say, I've said when all this lockdown nonsense stuff, it'll drop the perfect time when everybody finally ready to really come into theaters full. That's when it's gonna drop and it's gonna blow away everything. You know, hear me now, quote me later, right? So
Yeah, yeah. All right. Well, Alice, quick history with Terminator 2 and the franchise itself.
Okay, well, if you're talking franchise-wise, I always thought of the first one as a kind of a science fiction horror movie, um, less on the action part because looking at it as a kid, it scared the bejesus out of me. Because number one, it was disturbing to me to see Schwarzenegger, who I essentially idolized as a child ever since watching him in Commando.
Ah,
I
yes,
idol yes, I
classic 80s cheesy action
yes,
flick.
yes.
yes. Yes, it's one of my favorite movies from Schwarzenegger, and I idolize the character because I always compared that character to my father. And seeing Schwarzenegger play the villain in the first one literally scared the living daylights out of me. So the first one was a bit disturbing, and I have to say I still cringe seeing Schwarzenegger as a villain in any movie. For me, I don't like seeing him in
Even Mr. Freeze and Batman and Robin.
well
Time to kick some ice.
that one we just I just don't mention at all because that was one of the worst Batman movies as well. But anyway, yeah, I really don't like seeing Schwarzenegger in a villainous role. So when T2 came out and we saw Schwarzenegger, his role just did a 180, and now he's the hero. He's out to protect John Connor. I, I fell in love with the film. It is one of my favorite sci-fi action films of all time. I agree with Matthew on that one. And I also think that it is the best out of the entire franchise. I totally am on board with you guys in that all the other sequels that came after it, they had so many wasted opportunities to do something better to continue the franchise, but they kept dropping the ball on it. And the other thing is too, the entire every time you deal with something as touchy as time travel, there's always a chance that you're gonna make a big plot hole in your story. And I always thought the Terminator franchise was full of plot holes from the time travel theory. It would always turn on itself, and then Terminator is not a plot that you want to think about too hard because you're just gonna find problems with the whole science in the entire story. And I really didn't like any of the sequels that came after. I have to say though, honestly, that I when I saw the trailer for Dark Fate, I was really really excited because I see Linda Hamilton and Schwarzenegger were reprising their roles. So I was expecting a lot more than I got out of the film. Again, I am part of the crowd that really hated the fact that they killed John Connor. I literally almost choked when that character got killed off, and then here comes this Latina chick out of nowhere, and all of a sudden, like Matt said, she's the hero, and I don't know, the entire thing just rubbed me the wrong way. So for me, the action in T2 was the best. The villain and all was the best. The liquid Terminator, the liquid metal, the special effects. I think it was one of the most expensive movies to make at that time. I believe.
I believe so.
Also,
Yeah.
too, yeah, I believe it was one of the most expensive ones, and there was also a big change in the character Sarah Connor because remember the first one, she was just a waitress. She didn't know how to fight or anything. Everything was new to her, you know. And then when she came back in the second one, actually the actress Linda Hamilton, between that time she had been diagnosed with bipolar disorder, and the way that
Oh, I
she
did not know that.
yes, and the way that she treats her bipolar disorder was through exercise, and that is why when she came back in the second one, she was so super muscular, because that was
Okay.
how she kept that. Yeah, she kept a strong exercise regimen throughout her entire life. That's why she still looks so muscular even up to the last one, up to Dark Feet. Even with her age, you saw that nothing flabby was on her, because that is how she treats her bipolar disorder. And I don't think she released that until like way after the film was released. We were just like rooting for the fact that yeah, we see a strong Sarah, and she was willing to do anything to protect her son and the chosen one, you know. And then we have Edward Furlong. Well, that movie T2 was actually the one that made Edward Furlong's career as well too.
Hmm.
Yeah. So he was absolutely brilliant in the role. The chemistry between Schwarzenegger and Edward Furlong was amazing. It was like an adopted father kind of a vibe. I don't know if you all got that from it.
Yeah, I did. I
Yeah.
did. Yeah.
Yeah.
A surrogate dad kind of thing. Yeah.
Yes, a surrogate dad. So that's why it made the ending even more emotional when Schwarzenegger sacrificed himself in order,
Spoilers.
yes, you know, in order to protect John, you know. So yeah, that's my experience and how I feel about T2.
All right. CC, your quick history with T2 and the franchise itself of Terminator.
So Terminator is one of those franchises that obviously I couldn't get into when I was younger because stricter household. So like if something is rated R, you cannot watch it until you are actually 18. But
I could somewhat relate.
but like I was intrigued about it like most of my childhood because big into sci-fi and fantasy. So like it was one of the first franchises that once I turned 18 and I had access to the internet, I watched. I love both like the first two Terminator films for completely different reasons. The first one feels like kind of this hybrid slasher movie, but also science fiction action film. But there's also these post-apocalyptic elements to it. It's a brilliant low-budget movie if you're, learning about filmmaking and you want to know how to make a movie that looks really
Yeah,
good despite having no money. Um,
yeah.
it has a very simple, minimalistic premise, and it uses it to the fullest of its ability. The second film demonstrates James Cameron's strength as a screenwriter, where and this is why I'm not the biggest fan of Avatar, but I am tentatively why I'm a little excited for Avatar 2, because one thing I like about Cameron is that Cameron knows how to take characters on journeys. Like Cameron is not the kind of filmmaker to may have static characters very long. So every character that we were introduced to in Terminator has gone through some kind of process and is in a different place in Terminator 2, which makes the two films complement each other really well. And they make actually a really brilliant tight duology, especially if you watch the director's cut of T2, which has
Which I have.
which has the more definite ending than the theatrical version that just kind of has that more open ending that could leave room for sequels.
Mhm.
But going forward, T3, I didn't like that one like at all. Like T3 was weird because it kind of ruins T2 for me, because when they say when the whole point of the movie is Judgment Day is inevitable, I'm like, we spent the whole last movie trying to stop it, and you're telling me that no matter what we can do, it's like the whole point of this franchise is the idea that the future can be changed and altered, and now you're telling me that fate suddenly exists. I don't buy it, and you've neutered the proceedings. Like there is no point now. I don't get it.
Yeah, I understand.
Which is why I liked Salvation, because Salvation, I mean, it's not the greatest. It's as a kind of post-apocalyptic action film, it's a lot of fun. And I think it takes the franchise in a new direction where it's not trying to copy the formula of the first two, which is humans in the present running from some form of Terminator, which which makes it the most interesting to me. Like, there's all like, if you go back to the war between the machines, there's all kinds of places you can take the concept. Salvation's biggest problem for me is the plot is way too convoluted. Like, whereas the first two films are nice and minimalistic and tight, and they've got simple premises that they use to their fullest, Salvation is stuffed with plot, and it has way too much going on, and there's all kinds of, you know, plot twists and counter twists and all kinds of other things that don't make a lot of sense, and it kind of falls apart as it moves into the third act. But for the most part, I enjoyed it. But I never, and I owned that one on DVD. I found it secondhand for like $1, and I was like, sure, why not? But after
Wow.
that, yeah, after that, I was like, I saw the trailer for Genesis, however you pronounce that, and I was like, you know, I'm good. I don't. I like the first two a lot, but I'm 2 for 2 at this point with this franchise. I think I'll sit this one out, and then the more trailers I saw, the more I was convinced of that. And then Dark Fate came out, and the more trailers came. It was the same thing where at first I was on the fence, but the more trailers came out, the more I was like, you know, I think I'm going to skip this one. So I haven't seen those two. I've heard the Sarah Connor Chronicles are decent. I might.
Yeah.
But
it's actually, it's a great series. It addresses all the time travel problems. Like, they do a really good job of addressing that.
Because I'm generally less of a television person, probably why it's taken me so long to get around to that and like other things. But yeah, I didn't see the last. I love the first two. Don't like 3. Salvation is okay, and then I haven't seen the 2 most recent.
Okay. Last but not least, Tracy, your history with Terminator 2 and the franchise itself.
So whenever I think of Terminator, I have 2 thoughts. Man, this is really fun. And 2, James Cameron lies. Because I say that in terms of, I always have in the back of my head that time James stood up and said to everyone, to the entire fan base, in a little featurette leading up to, what was it, Genesis, I think it was. And it was...
Genesis.
You should go see this Genesis. I don't know.
I know
Genesis.
what you talk about. Yeah, he's like, this is like
this is going to be one of the
really
greatest.
good. You should go see it. I was like, bro, like, really? Okay.
Like, so when you as the James, you know, when you as the James come out and say, go support this movie, then I feel confident to go support this movie. You know, so for me that's the first kind of thought that runs through my brain. In terms of Terminator 2, I gotta tell you, I don't remember the first time that I saw it, but this is one of the franchises for me that is on the same level as Star Wars in terms of when I saw it originally, I get this kind of really great feeling about it. It has values that still lasts up till today, and just like Star Wars, there are a few stinkers in the group that you kind of just, all right, this is nice, but you know, maybe not. So like in terms of Terminator 2, the idea of the polyalloy, Terminator. You know, there are little things like spoilers. You know, there's that thing where with the foster mom who is you know, turns out to be the Terminator and is like killing the foster dad. Little things like that when I saw it the first time, and even if I were to watch clips of it now, it still gives me a little bit of a jolt, and I love that. I love how that makes me feel. I am a big fan of Terminator 1, Terminator 2. I don't have a problem with Terminator 3. There's some lines in there that kind of makes me, I don't need, you know, Arnold's talk to the hand. I don't need Claire Danes screaming, die bitch. I don't need, for example, you know, that's the scene. I'm seeing it in my brain. It's the scene where her father just got killed and Terminator shot the other Terminator who is disguised as her father, and as she falls down, she screams, "Die, bitch!" So
Really,
that happened.
really, Really makes you miss James Cameron as the screenwriter, doesn't it?
I know, right?
And but Terminator 3, I really didn't have a problem with it. It's one of those things where it was fun to watch. It's not something that I would inherently sit down and queue up, but I can still live with it. I don't really have a memory of Salvation. Like the memory I have of Salvation is more the behind the scenes things of Christian Bale yelling at people.
Oh yeah, so iconic.
So that's the thing that I have on it. But I do like it. I do feel like looking at a few clips, now modern day life and everything, I think of certain choices that Cameron made where Carter, Linda Hamilton, was concerned, and I kind of wonder about him because, like, he's made some statements over the years about, like, when Wonder Woman came out and he started to talk about the idea of a woman needs to be a female hero needs to be flawed, and Sarah was flawed, and I see the orderly licking her and kicking her in the guts, and I was like, I get that you wanted to make the mental institution a weird and horrible, inhospitable place, but I still feel like that's this is how a guy views how a woman would be treated inside a mental institution, and it just feels weird, for me.
It's who was at the helm in his case, right? It's
Yeah.
he let us say they had an incredibly bitter divorce because that's why True Light, the way he did it.
It's kind of funny to me. Like a few years ago, this is on a side, but a few years ago during the Golden Globes, his Tina Fey and they were doing a joke, and they were talking about Zero Dark 30, and they made the joke is, when it comes to torture, I trust the woman who was married to James Cameron for 3 years.
Right.
And everybody in the room sort of laughed knowingly, and then there's a Hollywood Reporter article that came out where Linda Hamilton herself says it was terrible on all levels. So these are the things that I guess it doesn't color the beauty of the film, the fantasticness of the film, or even the fact that the idea that, what was it, Terminator 2 starts up in 2029 and we're like 8 years away from that actually happening, the rise of the actual machines themselves being a thing. I love it. I really love Terminator 2. I really love Terminator 1. I will give Terminator 3 a chance. I don't know how I feel about the others, in all honesty, so I kind of just wipe them out of my memory. And I'm gonna go with Matthew on this one. I'm waiting for Avatar to see what else James brings out in his sequels. But in terms of this franchise, yeah, those are my thoughts.
All right. So I'll be reading from a notes here because it was a pain to sit through. Actually, I watched the extended version of the movie, so yeah, we had to stop ever so often and make notes and whatnot, right? But I did my best, right? So let's take it away. Let's talk about Terminator 2: Judgment Day, right? So I think that the opening perfectly sets up the tone of the film. You see this playground in LA, which will show back up later in the film, in a very powerful scene, I must say. And it's how it just kind of segues into like this post-apocalyptic world where the machines have taken over, right? And I just love, the proof, how it just all sets up how dark and dreary the world is. You're seeing skulls on the ground, and there's that iconic shot of one of the Terminators just crushing one. Like, I just mix that sound sound effect now. And one thing I would say, right, the production value in this 2029 sequence by far surpasses what we saw in the first film, and like it looks so amazing, right? There's the visual effects
about that the relative recently I recently learned what went into making that scene, that shot where the camera pans up to the Terminator and all the shit going on in the background, and it's like an insane amount of like impressive layering and shadow and color and what they do to frame it. It's absolutely brilliant filmmaking. Like, again, that is the thing about, and then all this is pre-CG, right? Well, pre-easy CG, let me put it like that, because it's the amount of craft goes into that shot is unbelievable, like unbelievable. Yeah,
right. So we hear Sarah narrating. That will be Sarah Connor, of course, played by Linda Hamilton, right? And she talks about, Skynet was willing to, willing to stop at nothing to wipe out the human resistance, right? But one thing that you kind of tend to forget now, but is how they word it in the film now. So basically, they say that they sent two Terminators back in time, right? So the first one was sent in 1984 to kill Sarah, before she even gave birth to John, right? But the second one was sent to target John when he was a child. And it's one of those moments that you had to stop and be like, all right, so the second Terminator being sent was like a fail safe or like a last resort or something. Cause it kind of gives you the impression
Right.
they send them out both at the same time now. Not like, oh, the first one failed, okay, let's send the second one. It's one of those kind of thing that, maybe if you like real into the law of Terminator, it could kind of, say, oh, well, no. They were sent at the same time or one after the next. You know what I mean? It's like that, right?
It's typical time travel bullshit. Yeah,
So,
typical time travel number.
right.
I'm having this image now of the two Terminators both standing before the portal as they're about to go to different time periods. They give each other this little fist bump and go through.
Yeah.
Let's
It's
go.
like, if all else fails, well, hey, it was
I
fun,
got
right?
back, bro.
Yeah. And here we actually see old John Connor, right? Who as we know is the leader of the human resistance, right? And in the narration they say, the resistance sent a lone warrior to protect John, but it's not a human this time, like Kyle Reese, right? Who's played by Michael Biehn, right, in the first film. But it's a reprogrammed Terminator, right? Who just so happens to be played by Arnold Schwarzenegger, right? Which again, it's one of those things that you had to think about. So, again, with every subsequent sequel, why does the next Terminator always, like, the heroic Terminator whatnot, why does it always look like Arnold Schwarzenegger? Like, I understand he sells the movie, right? He is the movie, but you'd think, well, it doesn't always have to be him, But anyway, that's another story for another day, right? The title sequence to this movie is perfection. Brad Fiedel's music for this, or Fidel, if I got the surname wrong, forgive me. Um, like the theme song for this though still gives me chills, but it is so awesome. I want like in the first movie, it had a sort of like a lo-fi sort of, how to say, like a mono sound to it. But in this one though, is full stereo, where like when you hear that bum 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 bum, it just like not it sounds thunderous now. I just love the music for this, right? And it sounds so dramatic too because you're seeing the visuals of just the playground in fire and ashes. You're seeing, and it looks sad, but it looks awesome at the same time. You know what I mean? I love that. And just that final shot where the camera just zooms in on the Terminator face too, and you just hear that dun 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 dun, and it just intensifies with the closer it gets his eyes though. I love love that title sequence. One of my favorite title sequences in film, like period, right? Ricardo, any thoughts on just the intro to this movie?
Yeah. Classic. That the first film did the whole. I love the whole the classic with the let's call it the whole letters crossing thing. The letters crossing each other to form the title. Yeah, more people should do that shit. Shocking how more people don't do that. Need more of that. That is lazy bullshit of putting things in some lazy ass font in black and big black screen. No,
You know?
do all that. Do that.
Yeah.
Whatever.
All right. Tracy, thoughts on just that whole opening sequence?
I quite liked it. I quite like it. I quite like the idea of the skull being crushed by the foot of the Terminator, and I'm trying to figure out in my brain, and nothing is actually coming to mind right now. So I'm sure that there have been films before this that have done it. But the idea of starting it off with the main character narrating, it's something that happens now. It's something that a lot of films, and especially action films and that kind of stuff, they may do that now. But I'm trying to remember, and I can't seem to figure out. But for me, Terminator 2 was maybe the first time that I actively took notice of like one of the main characters actually narrating how this thing is supposed to play out before the opening credits comes into play. So I quite like that. I quite like the way how they set this entire opening sequence up. The music is always joy. The music is always joy.
Amen to that.
And so yeah, those are my thoughts on on the opening of it as well.
All right. Alice, thoughts on the intro to T2?
Oh yeah, I totally agree that the score for the opening sequence very very iconic. Would even I even think I had it as my ringtone some time back on my phone as well. Also, the very I would say traumatic opening scene with the fire and the playground, it already grabs your attention right there. Again, a very scary notion of these intelligent robots taking over the future and seeing this the Terminator stepping on his skull. Everything very very iconic, and it grabs the audience's attention one time. So you're already invested in the film.
Yeah, totally agree. Last but not least, CC, quick thoughts on the awesome intro for T2.
What I love about it is that, especially from a screenwriting standpoint, is that its main function is to set up the stakes of the movie. So like, I mean, if you've someone who's seen the first movie, um, it serves to kind of explain what like basically how this is picking up from the last one. If you haven't, and I'm not sure how many people had seen the first one by the time the second one came out, it kind of gives you a quick rundown of the first one, where it's like a Terminator was sent to try and kill John when he was still a child. I mean, when we kill Sarah now, and then a second one is sent to kill John when he's a child, and then so like the apocalyptic imagery, the robots, the playground in flames, all these different elements all come together and like set the stakes. Like the world, it's the future itself is on the line, and just like establishing all that with like a voiceover narration, but also with like a lot of like really striking visuals that will kind of stay in your head and recur throughout the rest of the film as well. The music is talking about, it's again one of those things where I love the two Terminator films for different reasons. Like I like the first for its like kind of more minimalistic score, but the second one, which has this like bigger, more like taking the elements of the more simple one, but then kind of expanding them and creating something on the scale of like the score for Conan the Barbarian or something like big and powerful like that. Especially with the use of the drum.
As you brought up Conan the Barbarian, CC, I absolutely love the score for that first movie.
Oh yeah.
That score is so epic. Yeah, I love it.
Basil Polidorus, who also did the score for Starship Troopers, he a treat.
Oh yeah, he did, right.
He's a genius. Also underrated from him, but also The Wind and the Lion. But the whole opening for Terminator 2 does such a great job of setting up everything that is to come with this first one, especially what the characters are fighting for specifically, which I think is one of the most important things to set up that early.
Agreed. One thing that is so noticeable about the sequel, though, is how it looks, though. It has a very polished, very clean, spit shine look to it compared to the first one. Like, first one had a sort of like grittiness to it, a little grime, a little dirt to it. This one is like just like it's like they just like buff it, it just like so polished, so clean, man. It uses a lot of like blue and white lighting in it, so it has this kind of silvery look, which more or less reflects the villain, right? T-1000, which we're gonna get into a bit, right? So like in the first film, Arnie shows up. Well, in this case, we're gonna call him Arnie, right? That would be Arnold Schwarzenegger's reprogrammed Terminator character, right? So he shows up first via time displacement. Sorry. So as usual, he's naked and he heads over to a bar. That's where he stops at, right? Uh, and I love like when he walks in and all the guys just kind of watch him like what, and all the women are like ooh. That's really funny, right? He notices this guy dressed in a leather jacket with boots on, and then he delivers one of the best opening lines in movie history. I need your clothes, your boots, and your motorcycle. I love how the guy responds, you forgot to say please, right? So I love it's just the little things in this movie, right? So the way how the guy kind of outs the cigar on his chest, it would make sense for Arnie being a Terminator for him to look at it like, oh, you're trying to attack me. Okay, boom, let me attack you, right? And that's where they have this little fight takes place and blah, blah, blah. He's throwing guys through windows and all that kind of stuff. And Then afterwards, the guys are like, okay, I give up, that kind of vibe. You know what I mean? And then we get what I believe. Probably I heard a song in some other show, whatever. But I believe this is the first time I ever heard "Bad to the Bone." And like when you look at it now, it is so silly, so early 90s cheese, but it totally works though because of the entrance, sorry, to how Arnold comes in and you see the boots and how the camera pans up and you see him. And is that look that he has. I mean, yes, he had it in the first movie, but as you guys say before, not that many people, I assume, probably saw the movie that much, right? But yeah, this one, how it nails it, just the look and paired with the lighting, it works very well. Yeah, works even more as well, right? And that's why the poster is so iconic. It's just him in that suit with the shades and the shotgun, which he gets from one of the guys, and him on the bike. You know what I mean? It just all totally fits right. You know what I mean? So love that moment. I don't know if you guys have anything to say about the whole reveal of Arnold in this outfit here.
The only thing I can think of is that Bad to the Bone, weird trivia, but the only other use of it in this kind of context I can think of was actually in John Carpenter's Christine for the opening sequence when the evil car is being assembled, they play Bad to the Bone because that song has never been used in a subtle context ever.
No, because it's not a subtle song at all. Like you hear the guitars and that's
exactly
subtle.
what's coming.
Yeah.
You know exactly, like you hear those guitars and you're like, yeah, bad to the bone, huh? I always marvel at Schwarzenegger's Schwarzenegger doesn't quite get enough credit as an actor. I know he's often talked about how earlier in his career it was harder to find roles. One of the reasons he liked Commando, for example, was that it was the first time he wasn't being cast as like a monosyllabic barbarian, or a robot, or like something that forced him to be like stiff. But I think it's kind of remarkable that especially like he plays the robot so well, and as the character goes on this kind of character arc that we'll see in this film, but like you buy it, and the whole thing where he like walks in, like he's got all the mannerisms of like a robot trying its best to do a human impression,
right?
And like everything is stated very like simply, like in the most like minimalist, like very clear like way. Like everything is like, I will need your boots, your coat, your motorcycle, like all these like very clear, direct, like almost commands. And then of course like the pan. I love the pan while it's playing Bad to the Bone, like from his boots like all the way up, and then he just like puts on the sunglasses. And like in my head, that's kind of the moment where I'm like, all right, this thing is definitely developing a personality, because there is no reason for it to be wearing sunglasses at night. But I love it. I love it so much.
It's what it thinks is intimidating.
Yes. Exactly.
Right.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Right. Well, Tracy and Alice, y'all could intervene already, right? So just let you know.
For me, my whole thing with that sequence is that I immediately think of the third one, where she shows up naked and she looks at, what was it, the woman, and it's like, I love your tie, I love your jacket,
I love your gun.
and it's just, I love your gun, and that's so yeah. It's kind of sad that when I think about T2, I think about that particular mess. But yeah, that is the hilarity for me. But I will agree with CC in terms of the why need sunglasses outside of just to make you look more badass than necessary. And in a way, when you think about how he acts with John throughout the film, he really was developing a bit of a personality. So by the end of it, you got that full. But in that moment, although I will throw this one thing out, when that guy fell on the stove, the guy that he was fighting, and he threw him on the stove, to see that guy flail around, I kind of felt that it was weird.
Yeah, brutal.
Yeah, it was.
Well,
all right.
I feel like the thing to always remember, and this is what I love about Cameron, is that Cameron got his start in horror, right? Like Cameron got his start working for Roger Corman as a special effects guy before transitioning to like second unit director on one of Corman's many Alien knockoffs, before transitioning to Piranha 2 and then eventually Terminator. And like later on, he he made more just kind of straightforward action films and blockbusters. And I feel like by the time we get to something like Avatar, the horror has kind of been left behind. But the man, at the end of the day, and this is one of my theories as to why horror directors make great action directors, because horror directors know how to make an impact. They know how to make it look rough. They know how to make violence look, they know how to make an audience cringe at violence. So when you translate those sensibilities to action, everything has that guttural, visceral response to it, which is one of the things I always appreciate about Cameron, especially early. Like this is, if I remember correctly, this is Cameron after he has come right off the success of Aliens as well, where he's been honing all that crap in.
And there was the Abyss in between,
Oh yeah,
there was the Abyss.
The Abyss and True Lies are the two of his I still need to see. Well, and Piranha 2: The Spawning, obviously.
Yeah. Well, True Lies is great, actually.
Yeah. True Lies is one of my favorite action films, but it's in retrospect, it's an incredibly mean-spirited movie, unfortunately. But yeah, it's great. It's a film I love a lot.
Yeah. All right, so in the next scene now, a cop who literally shows up in the wrong place at the wrong time investigates an electrical disturbance, right, which is caused by the entry of the T-1000, right, because he shows up as well. He's played by Robert Patrick. This was the first time I ever saw him because I wasn't big on X-Files at the, in the 90s. It's only later on I watched it like, wait, you in this too? What? You know what I mean? But yeah, the look of him, yes, he has those big ears and whatnot, but he just has such a reptilian kind of look to him, you know what I mean? And even the way he moves throughout the film is very snake-like, very reptilian. I love that, right? And yeah, he kills the cop, like, literally, but I like that he just kind of, like, the camera doesn't even show how you just think he just like a punch or he gets stabbed. You're not sure how, but they will reveal, you kind of learn later on what his skill set is, right? And I like, it's one of those things I kind of miss to it, but I like how the film makes you assume that, he just stole the cop's clothes, because in the next scene you literally see him in police gardener. But later on, you understand, that's how he's able to get those clothes.
Exactly.
So really smart writing. I love that.
Funny enough, Matt.
Yeah, it's
I had a little argument with my hubby about that, because when we were watching it the last time, and it came up again because I mentioned to him that I would be on his podcast, he was saying, well, it's so stupid because they're shooting at the Terminator, and he has on his clothes, and the clothes has the bullet hole shot in it, and then all of a sudden he doesn't have the holes in his clothes anymore. I'm like, babe.
Right.
I said he's mimicking the clothes too. The clothes are part of him.
Right.
He does not putting on a shirt.
It's a nice it's a nice piece of narrative subversion, because you're thinking, he's just another Terminator like Arnold. Because we saw Arnold took the clothes from those guys, so he took the clothes too. Right? And then it's a whole different dimensionality of what going on there. Like, shit, this man is a whole different. This guy is a whole different beast now. I actually love that.
Yes.
Well, it's kind of a genius bait and switch, because I was thinking about how the big twist of the movie, that like Arnold is the good guy, gets spoiled even in the trailer, and like no one in pop culture doesn't know that at this point. If you didn't know that, I'm sorry. I did actually once accidentally spoil that for someone. But the thing I love about it is that if I was thinking about this rewatching the film, it's such a genius bait and switch, because if you've only seen the first one, you haven't seen any of the trailers, you almost buy that Robert Patrick's character is like the Kyle Reese, like the human guy, human guy who's been sent back. And the movie does because like Arnold character just does all the same stuff he does in the first one, where he shows up, he kills the guys, he gets their clothes, he runs. But Robert Patrick's character seems at first more human, and it does such a great job of like, again, this whole bait switch of like it buries the lead very well, is what I mean.
Well, there's another piece of subversion there. Who was the kind of the big bad guys in popular culture and in recent years in Los Angeles?
Cops, easily.
Cops, cops.
Yeah.
Right? That is very intentional by Cameron. I mean, Cameron is like noticeably a big 13-12 guy, right? Let me just see it like that, right?
Oh yeah.
It's kind of clever. It's really really clever how they play that out. But yeah,
Oh yeah.
that's a nice ruler. So if you're checking how to deal with that whole situation as shorthand as who's the bad guy here, it depends on who you're talking to. It's kind of
Oh
clever.
yeah. Well,
Mm, it is. It is.
it's absolutely ingenious. I mean, and I know Cameron said as much in a recent interview that like it was always intentional, and for that very reason
Yeah,
that like who's the good guy? It depends on who you're talking to. It's interesting because he in the film that he wrote and his then wife Catherine Bigelow directed, Strange Days, which was this like
right.
wild
Oh,
like
which I
cyberpunk.
need to see.
Sci-fi.
I need to watch
Yeah,
that.
great cyberpunk. Yeah,
It's
Mhm.
a brilliant cyberpunk movie. It really
yeah,
like everything that Cameron is kind of hinting at about cops and police corruption in this film. He just goes full hard at in that one in a way that
yeah,
that has actually made it age really well. I think like it holds
yeah,
up really
yeah.
well. And I think it's my Strange Days is probably my favorite of Cameron's films and of Catherine Bigelow's films for me. But like that
Right.
film, it's fascinating to see him revisit as a writer to revisit the similar ground in that film that he does in this film with
Right.
his choice of the villain. Exactly.
Okay.
Right.
Okay. Right. So in the next scene, we're introduced to John Connor, right? 10 years old, according to the film, right? Played by Edward. Where's he now? Furlong, right? Swear to God, I don't know whatever happened to that dude,
Yeah.
Tread. He
Yeah.
lives with these with his foster parents, who he kind of doesn't really give a shit about. And one thing that always stuck out with me with the movie is the Public Enemy shit.
Right.
Because this was the first time that I ever heard of Public Enemy. Now. So like years later, oh yeah, Fight the Power, all right.
Right.
Made two of the best albums ever, you know what I mean? But whatever, right? His mom, Sarah, is at a mental is a mental patient, sorry, at the Pescadero State Hospital, right? I love how in the next scene where, Dr. Silberman, who who was in the
Right. He
first
shows
film as
back up.
well. Yeah, so
Yeah.
he's doing a great expo dump, basically talking to two doctors about,
Yeah.
Sarah is a psychotic, and she believes these machines from the future was trying to kill her, right? And while all this is going on, you're seeing Linda Hamilton just doing these pull-ups, Dread, and it's like, God damn, she got jacked for this. Like,
Yeah.
wow,
Yeah.
wow. I love like the first time you see her and that look that she gives Superman, like, hi, Dr. Superman, has a knee. Just that
Yeah.
delivery though is so perfect. And it's also I was just like, well, yeah, she stabbed me with my pen a few weeks ago or something like that. Though. And I've just turned the page. All right.
I cannot believe that the other big thing she's known for is that Beauty and the Beast TV show with Ron Perlman. Like I need,
Which I remember. Like
That
when I
was
was
a
like really
vibe.
young, I
That was
remember.
a vibe.
That was a vibe. Yeah, it was
Yeah, but
actually a pretty good show.
That was a
I remember that
vibe.
one when I was like real young. But if you ask me what happened in it, I can't even tell you. I just remember Ron Perlman and the Habitat. I can't tell you
The
anything.
man used to psychically know whenever she was in trouble. He would be wherever he is and just like sense and just run
Yes.
and
What?
that
Yeah.
jacket and look that.
Yeah.
All right.
Sorry,
Now
we're
I
going
want to
but
watch
yeah.
that show. Now I want to see that show. I didn't know it was all that though. But anyway,
Yeah.
so back to John, right? So something that would have like really influenced kids, watching this for the first time. This guy just hack into ATMs, yo. And what
Yeah.
was
Well,
that device he had?
it was. But his friend, I love his friend, like the little friend. At first, when I remember watching the film, I swear that friend was Kyle Reese at the time. And like, no, he's just some kid who's his buddy.
Yeah.
But it's like, oh, so that dude has to die at some point. But when you see how that friend behaves and operates, you totally understand how John could operate in the world as a survivor in the battle for the future. It's like, all right, all of this is simple world building. It makes a lot of sense about
Right.
what's going on in the future.
Yeah. But for the life of me, I don't know what that device is, but I just like how he's just able to hack into ATMs and he just gets the money. It's like easy money. And of course he's a kid, so he jump on the dirt bike with his friend, head over to the arcade, right? Or call it the gallery, right? There's
Can we
this
just like real quick talk about the ridiculousness of his foster parents. Like the mother is trying to be a foster mom, and the father is clearly like, I have no time for this. Please move away from it. Like he goes outside to chide John and be like, rebuke him and stuff. It's like, John, you should come inside. But you can sense that there is no real there's no real paternal logic there. So
There's no emotion.
No, well, yeah,
no emotion. Yeah.
yeah, that's total foster home cliches 101 for if
Mm-hmm.
you want to have
Oh
shorthand for
yeah.
your story. Because
Mm-hmm.
yes, it sucks. And yeah, the mother is Vasquez from Aliens. Love it.
Yeah.
Oh
Uh
yes,
right.
that's true. Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I
Yeah.
like he was just able to bring back, all, well, people from like his previous films and
Yeah.
whatnot, right?
If
So
if
go on.
if you watch enough Cameron movies, you can just start a little list of actors that he seems to like bringing back again and again. The guy who plays Kyle Reese, who the only other thing I know him for is Tombstone, and he's also recently in The Mandalorian,
Yeah, Michael.
comes back. Yeah, he comes back quite a few times. There's the actress who plays Vasquez, Sigourney Weaver on several occasions. Like Cameron clearly is one of those filmmakers who has people he likes working with, and they like
Yeah, yeah.
working with him, and he brings them back as often as he can. I appreciate it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
which is dope, man. And a nice bit of story development. Now, there's this convo between Sarah and Dr. Silverman. And this is right after this great scene where we're watching this video where she, she's just spazzing out. She's just like going. Not, I shouldn't say spazzing out. She's just getting flustered and she's pissed. Because nobody's
Yeah.
believing her. It's like, yo, the world's
Right.
coming to an end. You're not listening to me. You're not fucking listening
Yeah.
to me. All that kind of stuff.
Frustration.
There.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And
frustrated, right?
it's very reminiscent of the same scene from the police station with Kyle.
Yes, yes, exactly.
Mm-hmm.
Same shot over
Yeah.
same shot over the cameras and all that stuff.
Right. So, they mentioned, well, the hand or the arm, I should say, that was broken off in the first film, right? When there was the
Right.
sort of hydraulic press kind of thing that killed
Right.
the first Terminator, right? So it's like, well, where is it, right?
Right.
If it was there, then that mean that it would have existed, but you're saying it's not there, so that means it didn't exist, right? But she's playing that off because she just wanted to be able to be moved to a different wing where the visitors could come in so she could see her son, right? And I love how they just answer the question, yeah, whatever happened to the arm nurse? So we introduced to Cyberdyne, right, which is this tech company, and basically they just took that now and they took this particular CPU that was in the head, because if you remember from the first film, the head was crushed as well. It's one of those things you kind of
Right.
forget, and they're like, where did they get this chip from? It's like, well, it's from the head,
Right.
because it got crushed, right? And yeah,
Right. So
they
this
pretty
is
much like replicate the technology now, or at least attempting to
right.
do so. Yeah.
Yeah. So this is another one of those great little time travel chicanery things, right?
Oh yeah.
One of the things I like about the Terminator is that you have a working understanding of how time kind of works, kind of, and it's, oh, this is why this happens because it's multiverse, blah blah blah, or some nonsense like that. Like it's in that framework of how you should think about how you should think about time travel and how this stuff works actually. And yeah, it's a kind of brilliant move. Is that the reason why Judgment Day is not that Judgment Day inevitable, but it seems very likely, given that once one time shenanigans happen, it will always happen because every time travel feed in the next timeline as it is now. And there's a perfect example of that. Right. I was like, oh, that's actually quite clever way to think about it. It's clever storytelling. And by the way, Sarah Connor Chronicles addresses this. It's so well done.
Yeah, we yo, I need to watch that show though. Like I said
It's a
that,
good show.
2 years ago when we talked about Dark Fate, but yeah, I really need to
Yeah,
make a note, right? I really need to.
yeah, it's a pretty good show.
Yeah. So we're introduced to Miles Dyson, who is played by Cyborg's
Right.
dad from Justice League,
Right.
CC's favorite film of the year,
Right.
Joe Morton.
Right.
Yes, yes, yeah. We will never forget those final words that you gave for that film, though. That is so iconic, right?
I,
Yeah.
well,
And I like the fact that, yeah, even though he's been working in Cyberdyne and pretty much working on this program for years, he, just like everybody else, don't really know where the tech came from, right? They don't know where the arm came from. They just do their job, right? So I like that, right?
Yeah.
So I like that, while Annie, while he's just driving through the streets of LA, he just spots, John on his dirt bike, right? And like you said before, he heads to the arcade. And speaking of just speaking of like throwback old school games, right? This man playing Missile Command, yo.
Of
Like the
course.
last time I played
Which is
that was on
perfect.
Windows 98. Yeah, and
No, but
yeah,
which
perfect,
is
perfect game, by the way.
yeah, but perfect analogy, which
Mhm.
is nuclear because Cell Command is about nuclear holocaust. That's where it was inspired by. It's
Exactly.
like, oh, this really clever visual, shorthand.
Yeah, exactly. Of course, the T-1000 is also looking for John, right? And he spots him and gives chase, right? So he's walking around. I like how he has this rectangular box of roses now. And then we get one of my favorite scenes in the movie, all-time favorite, right? Slow-mo, you hear the music go bum, dum, bum, and it's just building and building in tension, right? So you just see Annie just pull this shotgun, sorry, from inside the box, right? And John starts to run, and then he's aiming for the fire exit now, and then you just see the T-1000 coming as well too, and he's like right in the middle of this though, and then Annie's like, get down, right? And then this one shotgun blast, boom, and then you just see like the hole. Well, it's not a full hole, but it just looks like a dent, basically, like a huge dent on his chest, and then it just comes back.
This completely blew my mind the first time I saw this. I was like, okay, what the hell is that?
I know, right? Yeah. And
for me, it was that rose, the roses that he had in the box, because
that by the way is so gangster.
It so is. It's like, it is the kind of thing you would expect to see coming out of an Al Capone movie or something. That for me is gold.
It's Cameron. Cameron does not shy away from somewhat theatrical visuals at times, and there's nothing quite as theatrical as this huge leather-clad death robot pulling a shotgun out of a box of roses in such a way that the roses go flying everywhere as he pumps it in slow. One of the things I love about 90s cinema, and we'll get into this with Independence Day. But one of the things I love about 90s cinema is that it took all the excess of the 80s and just kind of ran with it even further. Like this is the decade that not only saw both Scotts, Ridley and Tony, like really commit to their own, especially Tony Scott. This is the era that we saw the birth of Michael Bay as a filmmaker. And Cameron is part of that same tradition. Like, he's definitely part of those like huge set pieces, a certain visual theatricality, witty one-liners, and like this sense of like visual spectacle and slow-mo and all these crazy things. And also I love the genius of like again, if this is your first time seeing the movie and you haven't had the twist spoiled for you, it's the get down moment is kind of the moment that a switch flips, and just as you're processing, wait, he's not shooting the kid, who is he shooting? Bang, the weird metal flash thing, and you're like, oh,
it's a cop. Yeah,
exactly. Yeah.
Oh, it's so
good. Yeah. Everything afterwards, well, I should say, in this action sequence is just amazing. From the moment with the shotgun blast to just how the T-1000 just has his handgun and he's just like, pew, 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 pew. It'll be just firing, empty clip, pull it back, and he's just firing, right? And then Arnold's just like, boom, 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 you know what I mean? And it just amps up from there, right? There's the little test of strength that goes on, you know what I mean? They push themselves through walls and windows.
Yeah,
love that.
That's another thing that kind of cool to watch, because it's subversive to how you think how dangerous this Terminator is, because it's like, wait, this guy's stronger than Arnold. What's going on here? It's like it's processing how dangerous the T-1000 is over this few moments in action.
Modernization as well too.
Yes, because they make it clear right at that moment how outdated the T101 or I think it's the T101 model. Compared to the T100. Yeah, right. The chase scene that follows, you know what I mean? And it's John on the bike, the music just amps up, and it's how you see the T-1000 running after him though. It's like, what? Like you would think, like, compared to the first movie, he's gonna just jump, stop a car and say, get out. He doesn't even do that till later on. He's running at top speed of the guy. You know what I mean? And of course, Arnold follows them, with Annie, follows them with the bike and all that kind of stuff. And it just keeps on amping up though. But the moment now where where the T-1000, jumps into the semi-joe and throws the guy out. That's when things just go full circle though. So it's like now Arnie, sorry, comes in and saves him just in nick of time, and it's just them trying to out, just try to escape this big truck basically covered that him though.
Yeah.
And it just keeps going and going and going. Arnold, flipping the shotgun to save him, right? This is just right before we sees John badass Jen. Up to the moment where the semi just the roof of it gets scraped off. I think it that's it, and then you see him show up again, you know what I mean? It's just subdued. And then this get roused up now. When it finally blows up now, I think that's it though. Just that shot of just Arnold aiming the gun, waiting. Nothing happened, and he ride off. And then you see the T-1000 in liquid metal form, and it looks awesome. Now, here's the thing, right? Now, I know, when you look back at it, well, that's not anything spectacular. It's just this guy or whatever it is, this humanoid character who looks silver. But what they kneel and you see it throughout every time he turns into liquid metal form though is the reflections on it. That's what sells it. It doesn't look like it's just this VFX character just there with no detail in it. You see bits of reflection of its surroundings on it though, and it's like wow. Like a mirror.
They nail. Well, it's Mercury. That's the whole. It's Mercury they base off of, because that's one thing. That's one thing that CG and computers nail a long time ago. Metal, like how to get metal looking right, any metal for that, and they had to pull that off from a long time. That's one of the reasons why those Transformers movies look so well. I mean, for all the problems they have, they look pretty goddamn good, right? You can't be mad at that. That's pretty much it there. I mean, they just nailed this metallic look of this guy, and that shot is such a kick-ass shot. And it's very reminiscent of the shot in part one where Terminator walks out of the truck. Same thing, walk out of the truck, fire, badass.
This is one of the things that, like, Cameron with both films directly borrows from slasher movies is the idea of the unstoppable killer. Like, you could like the thing I love of, like, literally both Terminator movies are chase films where the person doing the chasing is unkillable and the people running are trying to brainstorm ways to kill it. Especially like the first film, especially because the second film, other plot shenanigans happen that we get into later. But most of it functions as like them trying to brainstorm, like, okay, how can we kill this thing? Can we blow it up? That didn't work. Can we do the freeze thing? No, that didn't work. Like they basically trial and error all these different ways to try and kill this thing, and every thing it just keeps coming. It just keeps going.
Yeah, and what you described there is the central conceit of why I would think that Salvation doesn't work all that well, because no one really cares about using future tech or future this or future that, right? It's all about, how are we going to use modern shit to kill this future shit, right? You had to do that. And that's a big sell for it.
Yeah, you're right. So of course, John's like, stop the bike. So you're a Terminator, right? Yes. You know what I mean? And he kind of realizes, oh shit, yeah, my mom wasn't a psycho after all, right? And I just love where he says, who said, sorry, when John asks, who said you? And he's like, you did. 35 years from now, you know what I mean? I love that. This like, oh shit, like, his older self sent him here, right? And a little later on, and this is something that I never heard these words before in my life. The T-1000 is a mimetic polyalloy, right? Which means liquid metal, right?
Yeah.
And then we get one of the best sequences in the whole movie, right? And this is where John contacts his foster mom, Janelle Dredd.
Yes.
I love the setup for this, right?
Yes.
So, with her, points for setting up with her chopping vegetables, like chopping up vegetables in the kitchen. Perfect setup, right? And I love how the dog is barking when she's on the phone. She's like very oddly nice, and the foster dad is like, what's wrong with the goddamn dog and all that kind of stuff, right? And then right, so it's one of those things you kind of forget. So John is like, the dog's actually barking. It's like, wait, now what going on, right? And then there's like this fantastic like medium shot, sorry, where Janelle just kind of switches the phone with her hand, and then you just see her just extend her hand just a little bit. I just hear.
Yeah.
I like what it. Okay, she propped she hand on a counter or something. Okay, but you hear this crunch sound. Now, so you're like, wait, what's going on, right? So the excellence just continues from here, right? So Annie's like, all right, this is like one of the best abilities of the Terminator, him being able to mimic voices. So it's like, okay, what's dog's name? Max. And he goes to phone. What's wrong with Wolfie? You know, we use it John's voice. Wolfie's fine. Wolfie's fine. I was like, your foster parents are dead. No, full stop. Nothing else.
Yeah.
And then last bit is the wide shot. How it zooms out now. I just see Janelle's hand like a blade. It sticks right through the milk carton that dad was drinking from, and straight through his mouth though.
Yeah.
I was like, wow, this is like perfect. They just put this for kids for all ages in Trinidad. What is this? But it's so brilliant, by the way. I love that. And it really shows the power, the just the skill sets of the T-1000, though. Just so brilliant. I love it. I love this scene. Y'all have anything else to say?
No, I was just going to randomly say I feel like, there's something that is missing, not completely, but there's something that is missing from modern filmmaking, because I say that not to be glib, but in that whole sequence there, even before we got to see the reveal, you knew something was sinister.
Oh yeah,
you knew there was something sinister about the mother.
It was something about her eyes, though. Well, her face. She has this kind of weird calm on her face.
It's that. It's the overtly sweetness vibe to it. There's something about it that you just look at it as, this is terrifying, and then obviously when the stepfather does his glib thing about the dog, and then he just suddenly shuts up and you don't know what's going on until you actually see the reveal with his mouth all stuck through. And I love that. I feel like not all, but there are some thriller films in modern day that just kind of, okay, you expect jump scares, you expect certain things to fall in line, so plot point A, B, and C, but there was something about this sequence and this film on the whole that you just felt the terror before you saw the terror. Well, I guess harkens back to Alien as well. That is one of the things that's always stuck with me.
There's another clever thing from the first film. So you notice he went straight. You notice T-1000 goes straight for the parents, whilst back in T1 in Terminator 1, T-800 took a little while to get to Sarah Connor because he had to go through the phone.
Go through the phone, but all the Sarah Connors, right?
But and here's why that's kind of clever, because John is on the system, so it can immediately check where he is. That's recorded in the future. Little things like that, little details, like hey.
Yeah,
that's smart.
Yeah,
well, it's also
very intelligent.
It's also this really smart callback, because the first film establishes that, like, even if humans are fooled by the Terminator disguises, dogs are not. Like, the one thing the one thing the Resistance started doing was they started having dogs with them as guards base, so that if they were bringing human refugees back and one of them got the dogs excited, it was probably a Terminator. And it's one of it's this fun little detail. Again, sequels just kind of forgot it more or less. I mean, I don't know. I haven't seen the last two, but for the most part, the sequels kind of forgot that little detail for the most part. But it's such a little, so like, and like the first thing is like, they notice something's up with the dog, and then like the dad, and then I just love the cold, very like matter of fact, like hangs up the phone. Your foster parents are dead. Just like, again, it's that same matter of fact, very direct monotone. Just this like, no, we're not even bothering with that. Sorry, kid. I hope you weren't too attached to them, because never mind.
Yeah.
Oh.
Right, so next scene we get now is sort of like a drama into comedy moment. So Annie's basically saying that we have to, get you out to the city. We have to get you to safety, right? But, John's like, well, no, you have to go and get my mom. He's like, no, that's not important, right? But he's like, well, if you don't do that, the T-1000 will kill her, right? And he gets, pissed, because, he's a kid, right? So he's getting all flustered. And, he's like, let me go, right? And then, well, he literally just drops him now. He's like, why the hell you do that? Because you told me to. right?
Yeah.
And then like he realizes, oh wait, I could well basically he was programmed to John in the future programmed him
Right.
to follow young John's orders now. Like, oh okay. Yes, stand on one foot, right? So you have those
Yeah.
moments. There's
Yeah.
these two thugs that show up and he fights them and he was almost about to shoot one at point blank range and it's like, no, stop, right? And then we get to one of the film's major themes, the idea of what makes just the difference between what it means to be a human, as opposed to what it means being a machine, right? Cold calculated machine. So it's like, you can't go around killing people. Why? You just can't. Why?
Right.
I
Right. Yeah.
love this the delivery of the why.
It's yeah,
Brilliant.
it's great child fantasy stuff, right? Yeah, you have basically a big bodyguard that you could tell him what to do at any time or what, right? It's such a clever thing. But then
Oh, it
the
is.
morality comes into it. Yeah, the morality comes into it, and it's very clever, and it pays off later. This is
It
such a
does.
great
It
payoff
does.
later. Yeah,
Yeah. Oh, and by the way, it's one of those blinking and missing moments too. It's when John say, "Put the gun down now." Like the guy literally puts the gun on the ground itself.
right.
I love that. It's just one of those things like, oh yeah, he's following orders, right? Duh, right? That was
And
really
it's
dope,
it's
right?
yeah, and it's this kind of broken machine logic to the whole thing. Now. It's like, oh, all right, how these things take things literally. That's very
Exactly.
clever.
Yeah, yeah, it is. Right. So of course John orders Annie, to go and save Sarah, right? And points for the scene transitions, or I should say the writing in this, right? Because the next shot literally is at Pescadero, right? At the security gate, right? So you see the security guard there, and you're thinking, but wait, no. But right before that, they talk about we going to save her, right? So in your mind, automatically you're thinking, oh, it's Arnold, but he doesn't have a car, right? But you realize, oh, the person actually in the car is the T-1000, and it's a
Yeah,
police car. So it's like, oh shit. So
yeah,
it's just how these scenes kind of just coming from the next door. Just solid writing, right? Anyway, so the T-1000 gets inside the building and proceeds to hunt down Sarah, right? And there's one shot though. Like I imagine, like if I saw this back in '91, I would have lost my mind, right? And this is where you see him rise up from this checkered floor. I just see him
Mhm.
rise up
yeah.
slowly, though. You know what I mean? It looks so creepy and terrifying, though. But like in terms of visual effects, though, it is so amazing. And it gets even better because there's this like portly guard there walking up and down, and he assumes the role of the guard. So I like all the when the guard now, he's filling up this cup of coffee now, turns around now, and he sees him, and it's like he just shocked her, and T-1000 now just kind of watch him put up his arm or his hand, I should say. I just see like one of his fingers, his index finger, just turns up blade and he sticks him through his eye, and as he look that he gives him to this kind of, wow, so
Yeah, real.
that's what happens when humans die. Wow, that's so fascinating, though. But it's such a brilliant scene and so very slasher influenced, though. Right down to the music that they use, the kind of ding, what I mean, that kind of music they use there. So
It
brilliant.
it feels like Michael Myers. Like
Yeah,
he channels Michael Myers so hard. Robert Patrick is another one of those actors that you'd think would have exploded after this movie, but I don't know.
I
I mean,
know, right?
he
Yeah,
had like
nothing
a
really
couple.
much people.
Yeah, no, he's had a couple scattered roles. I know he recently got cast in James Gunn Peacemaker series, which is about to wrap filming. But aside from that, like the man has
Well, could you just repeat that? What show?
um the Peacemaker show that James Gunn is doing for HBO
right,
Max. I know that
right.
Patrick
Oh,
got
okay, okay.
yeah, he got cast in that. But like aside from that, he mostly kind of exists to kind of ride off his Terminator 2 cred. I know he had that like he has that funny bit in I think it's Wayne's World
Right.
where he
Yeah.
where he shows up in that and it's like this whole gag because it's like it's the T-1000 runs away screaming like that kind of thing. But like
Mm.
I don't know, you'd think because like he's so like when I saw an episode of his of the X-Files because I haven't watched that show a lot, but I've seen a couple scattered episodes and I saw a couple of his and watching that and then rewatching Terminator 2 and you see how many of these mannerisms he is creating and how many like it's not like they picked someone who's just kind of naturally odd and went with that. Like he's creating all of these very distinct like reptilian or like kind of or like mechanical mannerisms, and there are these moments where he's channeling Michael Myers or other slasher characters. It's just, why is the man not in more things? Oh my god! Like, come on!
He has a bad, he has a bad agent. He has a bad agent.
Horrible
Clearly, yeah. So while all this is going on now, Sarah does make an attempt to escape the hospital, right? And in a great moment, which mirrors the first time John sees Annie for the first time, Sarah runs into Annie himself, right? And they play the same music, that boom, 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 and it's so perfect too, because she's thinking, oh shit, it's the same Annie from the first movie, and it's how she just drops on the ground, and the fear on her face, and how she just goes, no, it's brilliant, right? And while the son comes, it's like, mom, wait, and all that kind of stuff, right? So the orderlies now end up apprehending Sarah now, and Annie, while realizing this now, is just like, well, I had to save her now. I love how he's just like throwing people on walls, through windows, and all that kind of stuff. I feel sorry for the sole female security guard, because he just like pushes her, he just across the room though. It's just brilliant, right? And then right afterwards, though, you see the T-1000 show up though. I love that you're just seeing these bars, like this gate now, and he slides through the gate itself. I love that there's this little moment where he's holding the gun and the gun is lodged. It's like, oh, whoa, you know what I mean? And it's like this visual cue, like, oh well, yeah. This kind of stuff isn't, like he can't turn into guns, right? As they say before, he can't turn into, complex weapons, but he can turn into knives and stabbing weapons, right? So I love that little visual cue, like, yeah, that's, you see, right.
It's a quick, it's a quick. Yeah, exactly. They explain that a quick little plot hole thing that you would address, because why do just make like submachine guns all the time, right? It's just simple. There's one thing that Terminator 3 had an opportunity to make interesting, and they effort up, which is kind of annoying, but they didn't do anything with that, because that character had all those abilities, and that was the idea, is like, oh, it's such a complex mixture of T-800 and T-1000, like do something with that. Didn't do it. Total waste.
Yeah.
Alice,
you're saying?
Go ahead, Alice.
Oh, no, I was just saying that that scene just showed, so he's got some limitations after all,
Right.
That's what I was saying.
No, the only thing for me is so fast forward many years later to the first X-Men, and that whole T-1000 going through the bars. I always I think about that when I think about that Senator Kelly.
All right. When he
liquefying
escapes, liquefying
and
his
going
way
through the
out
bars.
of Magneto's prison.
Yeah. There's
That's
always like these
gross.
weird kind of cross callback kind of vibes that I always find hilarious.
Yeah, it's how iconic the movie is, right? There's another great chase sequence though, and I love like while the T-1000 running, he's firing the handguns. He's like, pew, 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 pew. You know what I mean? I love that, right? There's a great moment though where like our heroes get inside the elevator, and he uses his arms like this kind of blade, like sort of like more like what you call it, like tongues in a sense, and jaws of life, yeah, and he opens the door. And he collects a shotgun blast in the face, yo. That is so badass shit. And the chase scene, well, it just continues, is great as well. I just love the fact that it shows you that you think, oh well, this T-1000 just need to apprehend a vehicle and chase him. Like, no, the man will like run you down. Like once he locked in on you, he will run you down. And to the point that he will use the whole jaws of life thing and stick himself in the back of the vehicle. And he's like he's being dragged on the street and whatnot though. Like the man just won't stop though. That moment, like that sequence alone kind of, like as you mentioned, Alice, the slasher vibe about it, the horror aspect about it.
Yeah.
Like if you look at him though, it looks like he is some sort of like supernatural like creature just hunting somebody down. It's such a great scene, you know what I mean?
It's like CC said, like that Michael Myers vibe, we get that from him, because in Halloween, that he gets stabbed in the eye, all kind of stuff, and you just see Michael Myers just gets up and keeps coming at you without stopping, like some train coming at you 100 miles per hour. Is a very similar concept.
Yeah, exactly. There's a great moment though where Sarah, just takes it out on John. Is like, you shouldn't have done this, man. You would expose yourself. I mean, that was stupid. and John like starts crying and there's a great moment where Annie asks, what's wrong with your eyes, and he says nothing, right? So meanwhile now this cop on motorbike, right, again, cop's just showing up at the wrong place at the wrong time, runs into the T-1000, and then the T-1000 delivers one of my favorite lines this whole movie. Say, that's a nice bike. I don't know what it is about that guy, like it's just so reptilian. This is like, you know what? Some cop that I could screw over. Yes. I just love that, right? So they stop over at what I assume is a abandoned gas station. That's if I have like one nitpick in the show though, is that they just find this random place and okay, they just open it up and it have like a medicine kit and all that kind of stuff. Like, was this a place that John designate for the Terminator to go to or something? Like, they just kind of find it there and they just shack up there like for no reason, right? But whatever, right? Um, there's an actual deleted scene basically where he mentions that the processor that's in his head, right, the CPU, the neural net processor, basically, that it's designed in such a way that he can't learn more and that he could only do so much. So the only way for it to work now, for him to like really understand like what it means to be human, basically, is to kind of reset the switch in it, right? So they like remove his scalp and then they open up this little thing in his head and literally do that. And like I understand too, a time why they cut it out though, but like if you look at the extended edition now, it's a great moment in terms of showing, hey, it's the same chip that they have at Cyberdyne. Wow, you know what I mean? So that's really why it's there, right?
I've never seen that scene, so I've never seen extended edition.
Oh, okay. Well, the scenes that they did cut though, well, clearly they did it for time, right? Because I thought that the pacing for the movie, well, the theatrical cut was great now. But I feel like behind the scenes, people were just like, this kind of dragging a little bit. Let me get back to the action. Let me get back to the story. But I think that was like a really cool moment, though. Okay? It shows that, like at the end of the Terminator is a machine, right? Like an actual machine, right?
Right.
So the next day, now they proceed to head south to the border, literally, right? There's a rather memorable moment where Annie learns like these early '90s phrases now, and like every time I hear these phrases, it remind me of like when Simpsons was like first out now, like in 1990, like just all these eat me and chill out, man, and no problemo was like, bruh. And one thing though, I could be wrong about this, but that whole Hasta la Vista baby was invented for this show.
Oh yeah.
Could
No,
it
you're
make
right.
it out as if, oh well, that's a popular phrase? No, they invent that for the movie because I never heard that phrase uttered until that show come out, and then from there, when they know everybody just quoted that, like quoted it from, and they probably will quote it till Judgment Day, literally. But yeah, that wasn't like no
I'll be back
popular
from the
phrase
first
coming up.
Terminator.
Oh
Sorry?
yeah.
Isn't I'll be back from the first Terminator as well too?
It is. They do a version of it. I'll get to that in a bit. But yeah, that Hasta La Vista thing, yeah, they invent that shit.
Yeah.
No,
Sure.
who would actually like literally come to a man and say Hasta La Vista, baby? And
Well,
if T2 didn't exist, you know what I mean? Just say it.
Yeah.
when we say invent, you mean like in terms of
Like I
how?
mean, like they wrote it in the script. But
Yeah.
how John see it is like, oh yeah, that's a popular phrase that we all say, man. Like, you know what I mean? Like that's what people say. Like, no
No.
problemo. That's what people say, but that Hasta La Vista, baby. Whatever, right?
Right.
So Annie now tells Sarah about how Skynet came to be, right? And there's a great little moment, like great little world building moment, So he talks about, August 29th, 1997, and then when Skynet got aware and, they tried to pull the plug and they launched nuclear missiles to Russia. Russia responds and wipes everything out. And it's just such a great moment too, you know what I mean? I really, really dug that. They stop off at, in the border as well too, by Sarah's gun running buddy Enrique to pick up some weapons. And the afterwards you see her come out in this like black military-esque attire, which by the way is such iconic like costume. And it just really shows just how like just kick-ass of a character Sarah could be. Like I just love that outfit. And again, Linda Hamilton's like ripped her, like jeez, right?
Yeah.
There's a nice moment now where Annie's like repairing this car and John's talking about him and talking about, well, how he would like love to meet his real dad, and just how loopy it all is, because well, his older self knew his dad, and there was that kind of vibe, that whole time, schwamminess, right?
Yeah.
There's a nice little high five moment, which is really
Yeah.
cool. There's a nice moment where he learns about why humans cry, but it's very subtle. It's just like, well, it's just something that humans do where we feel hurt, but you know what I mean? But we just kind of cry, right? And it's a nice moment, and I love the voiceover narration that Sarah does, where it's like, if all the would-be fathers that came into John's life, this machine is the one that came close, so it's just such a nice moment, right?
Well,
For,
it,
yeah.
it goes back to one of the things. Like, I feel like if you look at action blockbusters and you look at like there's a reason James Cameron has made some of the most successful and some of the most popular blockbusters of all time, and also why he is studied, I feel like, very aggressively by blockbuster filmmakers, because he's the
Yeah.
guy who understands that you can make the action like big and spectacular and powerful and whatever, but you have to have kind of a soft nougaty center, basically. Like, no matter how kick-ass your movie is and no matter how scary it is, you have to have an element, you have to have like an emotional core. So yes, this is like it's an action movie with the apocalypse and robots, time travel, but it's also about a mother and son with a very dysfunctional relationship, and a child with like parental issues and like all kinds of like attachment problems, and a mother who never really like knew how to be a mother because she was too busy raising him to be the leader of the future resistance. And then they get this, and then the Terminator. It's like how E.T. is about this like boy that's like looking for a father figure, and then this alien comes into his life. There's a similar thing that goes on in this movie where like Connor is this fatherless child that's looking for some kind of like some kind of like supportive parental figure, especially since his mom, as much as she tried in the wrong way. Like I think he himself, there's a line, I can't remember it, but I think Connor himself mentions that something to the effect that like she was so busy like training him to be the leader of the resistance that like she never really took the time to like take care of him in a more affectionate parental way. And like
Right.
this whole dynamic is what drives the drama of the movie. Like we want to see them survive, but we also want to see this this dysfunctional family unit come to some kind of resolution. Like we want to see Sarah and John form, like we want to see them get back together. Like, I mean, for us, it's just as gut punching for us when they rescue Sarah and then she starts berating John for trying to rescue her. She had it under control. Like for us, it also hurts because we've been with John this whole time. We saw how he wanted to get his mom out. And so to see her rebuke him like that, like we get a sense of their dynamic and we feel hurt as well. And then, I mean, and then later, like we start seeing him bond with the Terminator, and we start seeing like that whole dynamic form, and it drives the drama of the movie, which is why the finale, which when we get to it, has the punch that it does. It's one of the things about it that like I feel like a lot of blockbuster filmmakers learned from Cameron. It's okay, no matter what kind of like bad got going on in blockbuster, you have to have some kind of like, and if you go a little like melodramatic with it, it's fine because audiences will buy big emotions. So you have big action, you have to have big emotions to go with it. So you can, whatever you do in your action, something you see in the MCU, for example, but like no matter how big you take your action, you have to have some kind of like very human drama that the audience can follow along with at its core as well.
There's something to be said for the same thing that CC was saying, right? In the action-oriented films, it's the same thing why superhero films mostly do so well, is that everybody wants to look up to a hero.
I mean,
Everybody wants to look up to that person that you could count on when like the world is going to end, judgment day is going to come in, and that's the other aspect of an action film as well too. Everybody wants to look towards the hero in the film, and that person will lead by an example as well too. And there's also that emotional connection that it makes with the audience, in that our own lives, well, most people's lives sometimes are very crappy for one reason or the other. So you want to look for that role model, for that person that could give you that escape, for that little period of time. That's why we watch movies most of the times anyway, right?
Oh yeah.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. That's true. All
Yeah.
right. Now we get to, probably the most disturbing scene in the whole film, the
Mm.
playground dream sequence. Right.
Oh.
I will never forget the first time seeing it though. And this is just basically where Sarah, who's still dressed in black, and she's walking slowly towards the playground itself, right, in daylight, right, and she's banging on the fence, you know what I mean, and she's screaming, telling everybody to run, but no vocals are coming out though. And then there's literally a moment where you see an elderly, well, a somewhat older, I should say, not elderly, I'll get to that in a bit, older version of Sarah playing with what we assume is a daughter, and it's just like no, 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 and you're still not hearing her. And then the bombs drop though, and then it's like this huge shockwave, and it's just knocking, just blowing away through buildings and cars and whatnot now, and it just wipes everyone on the playground. So everybody's reduced to ashes, and Sarah, whose hands are still gripped to the fence, is screaming because just that nuclear shockwave just rips through her flesh now, and you just see it burn now, and she's
Yeah.
screaming no, and I mean that's the moment where you actually hear her scream, and it reaches the point where like the skin like burns completely off now, and you're seeing just a skeleton, and then
Yeah.
she wakes up, right? Now, in hindsight, like when you look at it now, yes, is robotics, well, I don't want to say animatronics, but I assume that's the term, right? It's Stan Winston stuff. You just know when it's a machine and not the real actor in makeup or whatnot. You know where you know the difference between the real actor and the robot, right? So yeah, but other than that though, it's, I mean, still like it's still a very impactful scene, guys. I don't know if you'll agree on that.
Oh, it's great.
Mhm.
No, no, yeah. Powerful scene as it is, Yeah, there's a scene that stick with me mostly because it's very pre. Well, the next movie we're going to talk about, seeing a city vaporized from just some big explosion of sort. This was the first movie that kind of did that for me. It's like, oh shit, a whole city blowing up. Wow, never seen that before.
Yeah.
Yeah, kind of hard.
Exactly, yeah. So off of that now, she just, just jumps in the car and drives off, right? But before leaving, she was carving the phrase "no fate" on this table, right? And it's all based, if you remember, your Terminator law. That's what Kyle said to Sarah in the first film now. Even though, to be fair, they actually like rework what it is he said in the first movie. So he didn't say there's no fate, but what do we make for ourselves, right? But it's one of those things that because they see it in two, and because they see that, oh, Kyle said it to her, we all assume that, or we all assumed that that's what he said in the first movie, but actually, no. But they just kind of ran with it all throughout the franchise, right? But yeah, basically Annie and John put two and two together, realized, oh shit, she's going after Miles, right? And I absolutely love the following sequence here with Sarah going, basically riding into Miles' home and basically like trying to shoot up his place thread, and then
Yeah.
literally walking inside his house attempting to just kill this guy.
While his
Because really, what
family
makes
is
it
inside
work?
the house.
Yeah. Sorry, say that again.
No, sorry, while his family is in this
Yeah.
brutality, while the
Yeah.
man, family, and child is
Yeah.
inside the house.
Now,
There's
no. As you
this
bring
is
up that,
interesting.
one quick fact, one quick fact before I forget, right? So there's a deleted scene that's in the extended version of the movie where you realize that Miles actually had two kids. He has a son and a daughter. They removed
Okay.
that scene altogether though. So in that same
Oh,
shootout in the house, you only
uh-huh,
see the boy. So I'm like,
right.
wow, they just eliminate the guy's daughter just so how
Right.
that
Yeah.
just
So
feel,
he had
Jen?
two
Wow.
kids.
He had two
Interesting.
Right.
kids. Yeah.
Wow.
But what makes that scene work though is that it's Linda playing the Terminator role. She's going up
Right.
against a human. She's stopping at
Yeah.
nothing. She's
She
skilled with
became the.
firearms, and she will not stop. Love that. Love that. Love that. I
Yeah.
love like this last thing before we get to your thoughts, Ricardo, where she's about to shoot him, and then she's like in her head, just like, no, I can't do it. I can't do it. And then she
Mhm.
just like reluctantly just gives up. I love that. See,
Mhm.
Ricardo, yeah, thoughts on that scene?
Yeah, no, it's very, very deliberate imagery as well, right? This kind of weird anarcho, off the grid woman, attacking a black family, military kind of thing. You really show going on there.
Mm-hmm.
And it really works as in the context of the scene. Again, very deliberate by Cameron. But then who turning back around and what is, his rules of thumb of how to look like a villain. And it's really, really clever in that way. Yeah, I absolutely love this whole sequence. What follows is brilliant as well, where you get to see, a hand.
Yeah.
That
Well, I'll mention quick. So yeah, Miles asks, "Who are you guys?" And by the way, he collects a bullet to the shoulder, right? And and John's like, "Show him," right? He pulls out the switchblade, and yeah, and he like cuts the his arm basically and rips the flesh off, and it's how Miles' wife reacts like, "Oh my god, ah!" And yeah, you just see his metallic arm, his endoskeleton basically, Jen. It's such a great moment, but at the same time, so graphic. Like by 1991 standards, standards, but it's one of those moments where, like, there's no other way you could have tell. You could have shown him that he's a machine, though. Like
yeah,
this is so blatantly like, okay, like we really had to stick it here. We really had to let you know how
We
deep this shit
not
goes. So,
make this.
ta-da!
This,
That feels like.
this cannot be ambiguous at all. Here you are. Here's your R
Exactly.
rating right here. We are going to literally rip the flesh off my arm for you to see. Oh God, it's so visceral too. I love it.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's just such a great scene. So yeah, basically the next scene now involves, well, Miles is just like, yo, I done this, we need I'm gonna quit I'm gonna quit tomorrow. Mortar is like, no. We need to get to Cyberdyne now. We need to just destroy everything. No one should follow your work, right? So they head down there. Of course, they armed and whatnot. They do their thing. The cops show up because one of the police guards realize, oh, it's the same guy who was in the Galleria who shooted up the place, right? A whole squad of policemen show up and whatnot. And I just love how it's just like, well, John told Annie beforehand, don't kill anyone, right? So yeah, my
yeah,
boy have he grenade launcher. And he has one of my favorite guns. This was the first time I ever saw the
mini
minigun. It is
minigun.
still
Yeah,
my favorite game. Sorry, my favorite gun ever. Yeah,
but
not saying
uh,
that I'm promoting guns or whatnot, but there's like if I'm playing a first person shooter game, it has to have a
I
minigun.
mean,
I just love that
yeah,
so much.
yeah. Well, for me, it's from Predator.
Oh
I
right,
do it from.
yeah. What Jesse Ventura had. Oh my god,
Yeah,
how can I forget that? Yeah,
yeah, but
right.
yeah, this was
Yeah, it was, and yeah, I love how effective he uses it. Right, he's just like shooting at at the well, not well, he's shooting at the police basically, but at the feet basically. So he's just chasing them away, and yeah, he just shooting the cars and whatnot, make sure they blow up and shit. You know what I mean? But I love this. It's one of those goofy moments in the movie where you see this like from his peripherals that you see human casualties 0.0.
yeah, yeah,
It's so funny, but at the same time it's like, yeah, it's a Terminator movie, right? Just roll with it, right? Because yeah, point zero, right? Whatever.
yeah.
Um and right, so basically they reach the spot where the arm and the chip is, they destroy it and whatnot. And while all this is going on, just the T-1000 just being the sneak that he is. I love how, all through this, whatever happened to him though? The guy just like driving on his bike, right? Past the burning police cars, and he just moving like a sneaker, just moving, just watching everything. You know what I mean? He even makes his way up a couple flight of stairs, all that kind of stuff, right? So in the process now, while they're leaving now, well, before they even do this stuff, they set this certain area with some explosive, right? So as they're about to leave now, the police show up and Miles gets shot, like just like a number of times, right? And he's like, "Yo, just go ahead. I will hold on to the timer, right? Sorry, to the detonator. Sorry, right? So, in between all that, now there's a moment now where basically the cops start shooting tear gas at the hero at our heroes, right? So Arnold now just kind of watch them, and that's when he drops the "Stay here, I'll be back." Great moment, right? Where he's not
Right.
saying "I'll be back." It's just like, I'll see it, but I want to see something before that, right? So I love where he just kind of just walking up to them and in like in RoboCop style, he's collecting a bunch of shots now. But like, the closer he reaches to the cops now, he's just shooting them in the kneecap. It's just like blam, blah, 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 blah. And then he grabs one of the the grenade launcher now that was just sent on the tear gas. There's one cop who runs down and then collects one shot to the back. I love that moment so much. I love it, right? Now back to Miles now. So the moment the cops come in now, and great shot though, and it's him just keep breathing like his last breath. So it's just like
Yeah.
Can I just say how disturbing that scene was to me
Yeah.
up to now? I can't watch that
Yeah.
scene because
I think it's a
Yeah.
close up of his face and how he does it and how his eyes are
Right.
bulging when he does it though.
I
But it's
know,
a
Yeah.
right?
true sacrifice. It's a true sacrifice.
It's so disturbing to watch. And as somebody who has asthma, so I know what it is like to gasp
Oh
for
God.
breath. Watching that, it just disturbs me even more. I could barely watch that scene even as an adult. And
Yeah.
just knowing that that man, well, he represents a man that's dying, it's very
Yeah,
hard.
yeah. And you're thinking, wait, is this what happens when you give your last breath now? Is this how
Right.
you look? This is how you feel? Yeah, yeah. But
Yes.
it's true sacrifice, right? And he was just able to do his thing, right? And he Yeah, yeah. Annie now, just goes back in with this police truck, this police van, basically, and gets Sarah and John in, and they flee, and then we have what is, in my opinion, the best scene in this entire movie.
Yep. You know
This is the
exactly what
greatest
you mean.
thing in the history of life itself. T1000 drives his 'cause he's in one of the high floors now. He rides the bike, busts through this window, jumps onto a helicopter, works his way around the windshield, bursts his head through, and then slides in as the liquid metal now. Watches the pilot, says, "Get out." Pilot just kind of nods and jumps out. That is one of the greatest scenes in
Yeah,
the
there we
history
go.
of anything.
Mhm.
When I saw it like the first time in the movie, like when I watched the movie the first time and saw that, I was like in awe. But I never forget for the marketing for this movie, that wide shot of the helicopter going towards the helicopter, sorry, of the bike going towards the
Motorcycle.
chopper
Yeah.
though, was
Yeah.
just so mind blowing though. I love, 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 love that scene. I don't know if you guys agree on that with that.
Oh yeah. Solid action moments, and like you said, that thing where he just turns to the pilot and says, "Get up," and the guy just jumps out with like no hesitation.
Guys
There's a
like, the guy's like, you know what? I may be pretty high up in the air, but you know what? I'll take my chances over staying
Yeah.
in here.
Yeah.
Bye.
exactly.
Yeah,
Yeah. No,
It had to be
and I,
better
and I,
than dealing with this thing.
yeah. No, I'm not being paid enough for this, right?
Yeah.
you know. I think what make it funny too is because the guy just nods. He doesn't say anything. He's
So
scared. He's
Yeah.
just
It's
like,
his expression.
like,
okay,
yep.
yeah. So afterwards, now we get what is essentially a chase scene involving a helicopter. I think this is like probably the first one ever in film history. I don't know where a helicopter is chasing like a vehicle. Of course, in the process, the chopper blows up. The T1000 has to resort to the whole, the traditional truck jacking method. You know what I mean? Stop a truck, pull the guy out. And in this case, the truck is carrying liquid nitrogen. Aha, right?
Right.
So all this leads now to a steel mill where all the vehicles crash and whatnot now, and in a very very memorable scene now, and just brilliant visual effects now. The liquid nitrogen, just slowly, sorry, not even slowly, quickly freezes T1000. So while he's walking, he's like freezing and like he's breaking apart and all
Yeah.
that kind of stuff, right? And then the line the line of all lines, the line that was all over the marketing for this movie, "Hasta la vista, baby." One
Yeah.
shot, boom. Love, 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 love that moment.
Oh my
That's like one of the greatest moments in action history, like period, like in film history, Trent. We agree or
Yeah.
Yeah.
disagree?
Yeah. No,
It,
agreed.
yeah.
You're not gonna get a moment like that anytime soon.
Yeah. And in perfect Terminator form, though, it just keeps going. Keep thinking, oh, he dead. It's like, no, because the heat now just turns him into liquid now. There's this great shot. I should really look at it behind the scenes and see how they pull it off now. Where it
Mm-hmm.
looks like, it's just like
Mercury.
mercury from a
Yeah.
from a
A
thermometer just
thermometer.
like
Yeah.
coming together. Yeah, and then you just see his body form back again. It's just so brilliant how they pull it off there.
Mhm.
What I like though is one of those things you kind of forget, right? So like as the T-1000 is walking, he starts to assimilate like everything around him. So there's a moment where he grabs onto this reel, which is like painted in white and black, and his hand is white and black as well too. So I could be
Looks like
wrong,
a
but I assume it
chameleon.
has to do with the heat. I think the heat is like
Yeah, the heat
probably
messes
one of
him
his
up.
weaknesses. Yeah, it is.
Yeah,
Right,
basically right. Extreme temperatures messes him up.
Oh
right,
yeah,
right. Yeah, yeah.
because he's
And
a little
go on.
wonky. Like the T-1000 is a little wonky for the rest of the film. Like
Yeah.
now which I love because now it's got that kind of wounded animal feel to it, where it's like a little bit unpredictable and a little bit like it was doing so well before with like shape shifting and holding together and everything. But now that it had to do the whole shattering thing, and now it's reformed. But now the heat is also getting to it. It's kind of
Yeah.
wonky. It's not holding its form together quite as well. It's just
Yeah.
it's
He's almost chaotic.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. And you could tell like he do even know what's going on, right? So there's you're right. So the T-1000 and Arnie fight, and you really see just how brutal the T-1000 is, Dred, because I mean, yeah. I mean, Arnie's holding his own, boy, but my God, boy, there's moments where, like, literally you see, like, this sharpened piece of metal. He sticks Arnie, like, through the back with it, though. It's like, wow, serious, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And it, like, disables him temporarily there. And then there's this great moment, like, just the great scenes just keep coming now. With Sarah, and, she has a shotgun. And
Yeah.
this was all over the marketing for this too. The blow, blow. And she just
Yeah.
does that like about 5 times though. Like, and just such a emotionally exhilarating scene though. You just feel that warrior spirit just come out of her though. It's just
Yeah.
such a great scene, right? But I just love again T-1000 just being the snake like character. You just watch the bullet holes though. You just kind of watching Sarah just does this kind of shut. I'm like, wow, but you Trent, you know what I mean? It's such a great moment. And resorts to alternate power now, and then he shows up and he does one of the smartest things in the whole movie. He shoots a grenade at the
You know.
T-1000's chest, right? It's like,
Mm-hmm.
wow, like you wouldn't think of that now, because it's just
Yeah,
shooting bullets, bullets, bullets.
I
Like,
think that
no,
was
use a grenade. Yeah.
yeah, I think Linda Hamilton has a twin sister, right? So that is who they
Yeah.
use for that scene, if I remember correctly.
Oh, right.
Yeah.
I forgot to
Leslie.
mention too. There's a moment where the T-1000 assumes the identity of Sarah as well too to fool John. A great moment actually, right? And yeah,
Yes.
they do well. Is one of those things you realize. Oh yeah, she has a twin, right? Wow,
Mhm.
great moment, right? But
Mm-hmm.
yeah,
So
we
sadly,
just.
passed away last year actually.
Oh no. Okay.
Yeah.
Oh, I
Yeah,
did
Passed
not
away
know
last.
that. Wow. Okay.
Well,
R.I.P.
that's news.
Yeah.
Yeah.
yeah,
But yeah, just the idea of using a grenade to stop the T-1000 is genius, though. So yeah, he implodes, right? And it's how his torso splits open, though. It
yeah,
is
it's brutal.
straight up John Carpenter / David Cronenberg body horror type shit. Right? It looks
Yeah.
really gross, though, but it looks awesome at the same time. It looks like if you just take like aluminum foil and rip it, that's
Yeah.
how it looked
Yeah,
like. It looked like that. You just see like his head sticking from one end. It looks dope as well, right? And
Yeah.
yeah, there's a moment now where when the body falls into this vat of molten steel
They
though.
scream.
And
Yeah.
it's a
mhm,
scream he does, and you
Yeah.
see how it shifting quickly and just erratically, and just
Yeah.
how it just kind of melts away
Like
though.
in a
It's
desperation to try and form something, but it's not really anything.
yeah, like
Mhm.
from a VFX perspective though, it is masterful, but from a horror perspective, it looks really, really goddamn creepy though, right? But it's
Oh
a
yeah.
great moment. That's true
Well,
and true, right?
this is the thing for me, because that scream to this day, if I sit down and I watch it, it does have a great deal of horror to it. Like there's something supernatural. This is no longer a robot or a machine that is coming after you, but this
It
is some
became
sort
an
of
entity.
supernatural. Yeah,
Mhm.
this is a supernatural specter that is trying to get its last hold on someone's life. This is a poltergeist. This is some kind of random. And I've always loved, and to be honest with you, got a little freaked out about those kinds of things. I like it.
Yeah, yeah,
Also
right.
remind you of that scene, sorry, in the mummy where Imhotep, the last scene where he's getting sucked down and all
Oh
his form
yeah,
starts
right.
disappearing.
Yeah, and it feels like the lava is like, well, sorry, the substance is like overpowering him, so he's like,
Yes.
it feels like he's melting away, but he's not exactly melting, that kind of vibe now. I know
Right.
you talk about, yeah.
Yeah.
I always felt like the line, well, Annie basically says, I need a vacation. Okay, so I've never like read the script for this movie, but I feel like that was just like a improvised line because I always wondered why would why would a Terminator say that I need a vacation? Like
Yeah.
because you think, oh well, probably someone he probably heard someone else say it, but no, he
Right.
just kind of says it like I need a vacation, like just because, right?
This is why I like the director's cut where they establish that they've removed the inhibitor part of his chip that allows him to develop a personality. Because
Yes, yes.
it's like the droids in Star Wars, where the longer they even as they learn, become individuals and they develop more of a sense of sentience, and they stop being drones as much. So the Terminator, like for me, that line makes sense, but it's also a signal that by this point in the movie, the T800 has become a lot more human. Like it's developing and definitely is more
Yeah.
human than it has been up until this point. And it has slowly been becoming more human as the film progresses, which is why the finale, the final bit we're about to get into, and I'll get into
Mhm.
why in a moment, is as heartbreaking as it is.
Emotional.
But yeah,
Yeah.
let's get into it.
Yeah, well, yeah, absolutely right, though, CC. It is rather heartbreaking, right? Because,
Yeah.
yeah, after they threw the arm and the chip, which they took from Cyberdyne, into the molten steel, and he's like, there's one more, and that's the chip in his head. So, it has to
Right.
go. Of course, John's not standing for that. It's like, I order you to stay. I order you to stay, right? And
Yeah.
then there's the great line, now I know why you cry, but it is something I cannot do.
Yes.
That is just
I know
such
it.
a gut punch of a
Yeah, it
of a
hits you
line.
right
Like
there in the
wow,
face.
I mean,
Yeah.
yeah. I love that Annie, shakes. Sorry, not Annie. Well, Sarah shakes Annie's hand, so it's not like I'm gonna hug you, because like I still scarred from the first movie, right? But I
Yeah.
respect you because you really went out your way for us, right? And you're making the ultimate sacrifice. So
Yeah.
yeah, and I love what he says. I can't self-terminate. You will have to lower me into the steel. You know what I mean? It's one of those like, yeah, smart writing. Like, of course he can't like kill himself. It doesn't make any sense, right?
Mhm.
And the music that plays though is just this sad, dramatized version of
Yes.
the theme song.
Yeah.
Him being lowered slowly into the steel. Uh, my God, John crying like in tears, like
Yeah.
when I see that
Falling down
though,
the face.
hey,
Yeah.
man tears for this whole scene, and then it's the thumbs up that he does, the thumb up that he does.
Yeah.
I always felt like
Yeah.
this was Cameron saying, "Hey, Siskel and Ebert, give my movie a thumbs up now. Like, come on. Like,
Wow.
I've
Wow.
entertained you for 2 hours and 50 minutes up to this point. Give
Yeah.
me a thumbs up now. Come on, man, right?" And then he like dies, and it's just such a powerful scene. And last thing I'll say, I dare anybody to sit through the entirety of that movie, right? And then when that point reaches, right,
They're not to feel
nobody could come to me and say, oh, that scene, no, that scene fine, I didn't cry at that. Because any hardback man will cry at that scene. Because yeah, I still do. I
Yeah.
still do. It's just
Yeah.
such a sad moment, right?
Yeah.
So agree or disagree?
Totally agree. 100%. It's always that scene always hit me at the feel, and like I told you, like I explained to you, I always have a thing for Arnold Schwarzenegger, like not a crush, but like I said, I always liken him to a kind of a fatherly protector kind of figure. So seeing that scene for me is always gets me very emotional, especially to hear John crying for him. It just yeah, just even
Yeah,
talking about it, I'm feeling a twinge.
yeah, it is. It is.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I'll just talk about the final scene and then my final thoughts on rating quickly, right?
Hmm.
So in the in the extended version now, this was the original ending to the film, and I believe after test screenings, the audiences didn't like that end, so they removed it, right? You see like a altered future, like a actual future, so it's not like 97, but you could tell it's years later now. Okay, see a elderly Sarah, right, sitting on a bench.
Mhm.
She's doing the whole talking into a voice recorder thing like what she did in the first film. She sees John, seeing John from the intro to this movie with a daughter. It's like, and it's like, oh, okay, everybody's fine. And then she mentions, oh, Michael Jackson turned 40, which is like, all right, well, in 91, okay, I understand, but I mean, now it's like such a dated line. Michael Jackson turned 40.
For me, when it comes to that whole that final sequence, the T-800 sacrifice, it's what I was talking earlier about, how throughout the film, like, yeah, there's the bigger things of the world needs to be saved, but we, the audience, kind of get invested in this whole idea that this broken family unit is going to be repaired, right? So when we get to the finale and we've destroyed the army, destroyed everything else, we have this moment of, like, we realize that in order for the world to be saved, the resolution that we wanted of, like, the T-800 and Sarah Connor and John to be able to form this, to be able to kind of form kind of functioning family unit is just not going to happen, right? Like, in order for the world to be saved, that goal has to be thwarted. And I feel like that's one of the reasons why it hurts so hard, because we've become invested in this idea of, we've become invested in this whole idea of we want the family unit get back together. We want to see John bond with this, like, we want to see John finally get to be with this father figure that he's finally found, only to lose him now. Which is why I like the extended, I mean, dated line about Michael Jackson be damned. Aside from that, like, that's why I like that better, because with that ending, it's clear and unambiguous. First of all, it brings the whole, like, it brings the imagery of the playground in flames to its conclusion, right? Like, it's the rule of threes. So, like, the first time you see it, it's like it's the warning. The second time you see it, it's the second time you see it, it's the dream sequence, and then the third time and the final time, it's her looking at it and realizing that her nightmare vision is never going to pass, and that they have in fact saved the world. It makes you realize that the sacrifice, like, it makes the whole thing feel bitter. Yeah. Yes, the sacrifice was, because we know that now the danger has passed. This is one of the reasons why I don't like T3, because the sacrifice was worth it, even if this family didn't get to include the T-800, the world was saved. And from the fact that we see John Connor and we see Sarah on this playground, and we got John's daughter there, we see that they healed in some other way, kind of like that goal was still achieved, even if not there. It's one of the reasons why I still maintain that the direct, it's like Aliens, where I think the director's cut is like the theatrical version is pretty good and fine, but I feel like for a lot of the dramatic complexity, the director's cut is the better version, I think, with those. But yeah,
right.
It's a very satisfying climax and final scene as a result.
Yeah, well, I totally agree with you, but I think it's because of the fact that we know that it have sequels now. That's why the ending is kind of like, oh, well, all right, well, that kind of didn't really happen because of the other films, right? But it's a nice, I think it's a nice way to end it. Like, it's a nice way, like, this is how how it could have been, right? And we could have had two films and just stop right there, right? But but the theatrical cut kind of has this ambiguity in terms of just seeing the highway at night, which we saw leading up to the Cyberdyne action sequence. And I think both scenes work, right? But I would admit, though, that the ending for the theatrical cut sticks out a lot more. But I do love that, it leaves us with the last line. If a machine could understand the value of human life, maybe we can too. Is, both scenes end the same way. So, yeah. So in closing, well, I mean, we've all pretty much agreed, and we could all agree that we love this film. Yeah. This was a blast to rewatch though. I haven't watched it in a good while, actually. Not even when I was preparing for Dark Fate, right? But it still remains my favorite action movie of all time. It's still one of my top 10 favorite movies ever. and it's just what Cameron was able to do with his story, basically, right? It reminds me a lot. Just talking quickly, it reminds me a lot like what Sam Raimi did with Evil Dead 2, where it's like it's the same film, but now I have more money, and it's like the things that I really wanted to do, because yeah, with the first film he wanted to incorporate the T-1000, but he couldn't do that because of money, right? But now it's like, all right, I have this money, and I was testing out the tech, sorry, the VFX with the Abyss, so now I know what to do. You know what I mean? And it was just him, just kind of fine tuning his craftness. So when time come, boom, drop T-1000, change the game, right? And yeah, I mean, in terms of VFX, this just raised the bar in just so much unique ways. It is still one of the most influential sci-fi films of all time, one of the most influential films in terms of visual effects. I still see that the Terminator as a whole, the story itself is one of those films that, like, secretly, if you're a screenwriter, you wish you came up with. You wish you could come up with a story so bare bones and so to the point, and
I can
be
confirm
so
that.
influential and be so influential and so kick-ass at the same time. Like, it's B-movie slasher flick, but it's you're adding time travel, you're adding the post-apocalypse, right? And all these different things. Arnold Schwarzenegger, I mean, he became an icon because of this movie here. Linda Hamilton, as well too. Both remain two of my favorite heroes, like in film history, in my opinion, off of this movie. The T-1000 still remains one of my all-time favorite villains. I mean, Robert Patrick killed it in this though. Edward Furlong, I thought that he was great as John Doe. I wish his career, really, went further than American History X. But I don't know what happened from that point. Maybe you'd have to wiki it. I don't know. But yeah, this remains one of my all-time favorite movies. Though this is one I'm going to be going back to for years to come, man. I don't think any other Terminator film had luck to to Tim Miller for his attempt was admirable with Dark Fate, but no, nothing could touch what Cameron did in T2, and that's like literally 30 years ago. So for me, rating wise, 5 out of 5. See this movie before you die. Ricardo, final thoughts on rating.
Yeah, it shaped the 90s in terms of action cinema, I would argue. The other film does the other big one as well, but this one I find was just absolutely brilliant. It is a movie until The Matrix. It is one of my favorite action movie ever, as I said. Yeah, I absolutely love this movie. Yeah, 10 out of 10. Very high score.
Nice. Alice, final thoughts on rating.
Um, I wouldn't say it's my favorite action movie, but it definitely is one of my top ones. As I always said, I always considered the Terminator movies to always have that horror element in it, which is why I exceptionally love the first two. I would give it an 8 out of 10.
All right. So
Yeah.
it's not 10, but okay. Tracy, final thoughts on rating.
So I'm going to pull up a pilot. You all have heard me use a pilot to rate films ever so often. In terms of, I find no fault in this punctuous pilot. I find no fault in this film because it really does a thing for me. Okay, so for me, I'm not always big on horror, except that I end up diving into certain things. I'm not always big on a whole bunch of thriller type things, but I still find myself diving into it. And what Terminator 2 does, is that it actually marries the humor, the horror, the thriller sensibilities, the action sensibilities in a nice little package. So I don't have a fault with it. I mean, bad mind means I could still give it a 9 out of 10. But I like it. I find that was cool.
All right. And last but not least, CC, quick final thoughts on rating.
No, it's one of those movies. Cameron is one of my favorite writers and directors to study as an aspiring filmmaker, because, like, again, everything I have been praising this entire film is it's the kind of filmmaking I want to achieve. It's the kind of like the idea of, like, blending, like, action and suspense with comedy and horror, but, like, still creating a satisfying drama at its core that the audience can connect to. And I feel like Cameron with Terminator and Terminator 2 creates this perfect duology. for me, none of the other films are good enough that I, in my head, ever like consider them canon. Like for me, I just watched Terminator, and I watched the director's cut of Terminator 2, and I'm like, wow, what a great story. Glad they never tried to milk it anything else with it. Like, because none of the other ones have been good enough to break that, for me to like break that in my head. Like if they make it Terminator 3 one of these days, that's good enough that I actually want to keep the idea that they're open for more, maybe. But I kind of ignore them and just kind of consider this a perfect duology. A plus, brilliant work, 10 out of 10. I come back to this one quite a bit, and there's always more to study and find, not just from like an effects and action, but just from a writing standpoint, how to create characters, and specifically for a sequel, how to take characters you've already established and build on them in a satisfying way. Like as you said, if you're a writer, and I know this is true of me, it's the kind of concept, it's the kind of screenplay that you look at and you're just sitting there cursing that you'll never make anything this good. Like you'll try, but you'll never make anything this good.
Yeah, agreed. Yeah, and I forgot to mention last saying it is my favorite sequel of all time. One which I don't want to say is the greatest one, because then I will say it's the Godfather Part 2. Because that one is the blueprint in how to make a great sequel, in my opinion. But for me, this one remains my favorite sequel of all time. So yeah, folks, I mean, 30 years of Terminator 2 Judgment Day, man. So let's see what we get. Well, I shouldn't say what we get. I don't think this movie is going to lose its energy. We lose its influence and lose its awesomeness 10 years from now. But hey, we'll see.